I offer you a spacious welcome to September, friends. Here we are near summer's end, savoring the gift of summer's golden sun shining around us for a few more weeks. Many of us have already shifted away from summer routines to new daily schedules with family members back at school and the return of homework and attention to bedtimes. As we welcome the PVCC and UVA students who have returned to Charlottesville as we cross paths with you around town, in grocery stores, and on our city streets, we are glad you are here. Tomorrow, Labor Day, is culturally symbolic in our country as it points to the arrival of fall. Yet, the equinox, in my opinion, the official start of autumn, where we mark the midpoint between summer and winter solstices, doesn't arrive until Saturday, September 23rd. We still have a few more weeks to savor the gifts of summer. As the wheel of the year turns ever onward, I hope you've had time for rest and play this summer season. And as we sang in our opening hymn, I hope that you've noticed this summer your own inner beauty and the inner beauty of the beloveds in your life, be they two-legged or four-legged or winged, who have traveled this season with you. Summer's end is a special time as we notice and appreciate the cooler temperatures in the evenings, the call of the katydids, and the lingering lights of the lightning bugs. We prepare to say farewell and safe travels to the hummingbirds and other seasonal delights that will depart us soon. And in this parting, we prepare ourselves to welcome the gifts of autumn. As some of you know, I am just back from my summer vacation, taken a little later in the season than usual for me, as Karen and I made a road trip with our dogs Lucky and Maggie to the Black Hills of South Dakota. Some people, when they learned this was our destination, said, "You're kidding. South Dakota for vacation? Why?" And I'm here to tell you that South Dakota is truly a magical, beautiful place to visit. And if you've never been there, I encourage you to make the trip if you can. If you heard Reverend Adam Dyer's sermon here in July, you'll remember that he encouraged each of us to get out of our bubbles. He was talking about our typical circles of interaction and our daily routines. He referenced our habits and behaviors that keep us insular or unexposed to new people, new ideas, and different ways of being in the world. Getting out of our bubbles is often easier said than done. We are all busy managing our time and juggling responsibilities. Our daily tasks and commitments can keep us focused on regular paths that can be comfortable in their familiarity. Visiting other places and communities when possible is a good way to expand our thinking. I was remembering all of this as Karen and I spent time in South Dakota, a region so very different from Virginia, with its seemingly endless prairies, grassland, dry air, Black Hills, ponderosa pines, as well as its own cultural mores and traditions. South Dakota's history is complex, with stories of homesteaders, gold seekers, and frontier towns, all on the unceded land of the Ochitishakowee, meaning 7 council fires, which is the proper name for the people referred to as Sioux. South Dakota is the homeland of 9 federally recognized Native nations. It is a land of beauty, rich in traditions and culture, as well as broken promises, heartbreak, and unhealed wounds. It was a gift to be welcomed by her people during my time there last month. There is nothing like being away from home to make this month's ministry theme, the gift of welcome, more meaningful. Reverend Tim and I have been talking about the many ways we hope to approach this theme and explore its gifts in the coming month at UUCville. As we work with the gifts of welcome, Reverend Dyer's encouragement to step out of our own bubbles has everything to do with cultivating deeper understandings of welcome. The power of noticing and making space for the new to us, for the different from us, for the unknown to us, for what to us feels unfamiliar or strange and perhaps uncomfortable. Stepping out of our bubble and into a place of welcome is an invitation to remove ourselves from the center and to center the life, the experiences, the voice of someone different from us, especially someone whose lived experiences and voice may not have been or may not be particularly valued by the dominant culture. Will you think with me for a minute about what it is that makes you feel welcome? What is it that makes you feel welcome? What helps you feel welcome when you are someplace new? What helps you feel welcome when you are in a group of people who seem to all know each other already? What helps you feel welcome when you are in a place where you don't understand the language that is being spoken? What helps you feel welcome when you are unsure or afraid? Anybody? A smile and open arms. What else? Eye contact, yeah. Using your name, yeah. Ellie? Using your name, is that what, you were the one that offered that? Thank you. What else? A homemade meal, yeah. Somebody that will at least try and talk to you. And Rachel, let me know if anybody on Zoom has a comment they want to share. What else? Christine? Opening the circle for you, their body language, and moving the circle for you. Yeah. Including you in the conversation. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. These are all wonderful, wonderful ideas. And they are examples of welcome from our culture, from my culture. There would be different longings and examples lifted up in other cultures and settings, of course. Our altar here in the chancel before us this morning was lovingly created by members of our altar circle, including Patty Wallens and Lauren Doran. And it has the word welcome in many different languages, including French, Chinese, Dari, Arabic, Spanish, Hebrew, Ukrainian, Swahili, Yoruba, English, Denena, American Sign Language, and Hawaiian. The altar circle has made additional blank cards available here in the sanctuary, and they invite you to add the word welcome in other languages that you may know, as well as any other words or phrases that you would like to add to the altar out of our desire to be deeply welcoming here. In the spirit of spacious welcome for all the parts of ourselves and to the fullness of each other, I call us back to the words Angela and I spoke in our call to worship this morning of welcoming one another in friendship and in the spirit of genuine community with the hope that we each will be graciously received here as our authentic selves. Our authentic selves. It takes courage and vulnerability to show up as our ever-evolving authentic selves. Our story this morning reminds us to look on the faces of other human beings and see that they are part of our family, that they are our siblings. And some of our beautiful siblings appeared as their authentic selves and led us in queer morning blessings during our centering and prayer time. Perhaps how some of our siblings showed up felt unfamiliar or different or discomforting to you. If it did, simply notice these feelings and, if possible, notice them without judging yourself. Let yourself be filled with an openness to embrace, wonder, and encounter difference and the new delights that difference gifts us. When I reflect on what is at the heart of my feeling welcome in the world, it has to do with my own sense of safety. Do you know what I mean? Safety is a basic need for us all. That sense that we will be physically and emotionally safe from harm. That sense that I can be vulnerable, that I can be my authentic self with you. Being our evolving authentic selves is deep core work for all of us. And it is greatly impacted by each of our own lived experiences and life story, and perhaps even the lived experiences and stories of our ancestors. For those of us whose basic needs for safety are being met, showing up authentically requires a willingness to be vulnerable and to risk experiencing hurts, even if the hurts we are experiencing are unintentional. For even as we seek safety, we know that life is not safe. Every day involves risk to one degree or another, whether we are conscious of it or not. Most of us in worship this morning could probably say that our basic needs for safety are being met. We know this isn't true for many in our wide and hurting world. Sense of personal safety goes a long way toward a feeling of being welcome. If a sense of basic safety is in place, then our ability to be more fully ourselves in all our messiness and humanness is possible. If our sense of safety is in place, we can feel more solid in ourselves. We get that sense of solidness by taking the time to reflect on and to be clear about, and by embracing who we are in all our humanness and imperfection. We get a sense of solidness when we name and we know for ourselves what values guide us. With this inward clarity, we can then be genuinely open to new ideas, to learning, to growth, and to change from a centered place. We can engage with the world from a spacious place of being both the welcomed and a welcomer. I believe this work of feeling solid in ourselves helps us show up in the world with less defensiveness, with less need of being right, and with an increased capacity for feelings of inner peace. It is much easier to be welcoming of others when we are centered in ourselves. And this quality of being centered or grounded in ourselves takes ongoing, often daily practice, reflection, and intention. It is a big part of what we encourage each other to work on and wrestle with here at UUCville. This exploration and centering and grounding in ourselves is part of our weekly worship services, and it's at the heart of our lifespan faith development programs. We are working to help each other be more solid in ourselves, more solid in our values, more solid in our work for justice in the wider world. I've been reading Tama Watt's new book, Keep Looking Up, Your Guide to the Powerful Healing of Birdwatching. In it, Ms. Watts shares a story that I relate to, and maybe you can too. She writes about being newly interested in birdwatching and wanting to learn more. She did some research online about birdwatching groups near her home, and she saw that one group's website said, "All are welcome." And she was intrigued by the announcement of a day-long annual bird counting excursion. Because birding was new to her, she was nervous about meeting up with others who had more experience. She describes how the night before she set her alarm for an early hour so she'd arrive on time, and she scribbled out a note to remind herself of just what to wear to look like her idea of a real birder. And she created a checklist of all the things she needed to remember to take along with her binoculars, her hat, etc. She writes that somewhere between dressing and packing her thermos of hot coffee and her water bottles, she, quote, began to have a strong urge to just stop everything and stay at home, end quote. She continues, self-doubt is a powerful and insidious entity and serves its master, fear, devotedly. As the time got closer for her to leave, Ms. Watts describes having to force talk herself into the car. Here's what her drive was like, quote, I could feel the anxiety building up in my body. My arms were tense and arching from my firm grip on the steering wheel. My neck had tighter than usual knots, and I could feel my heart beating hard against my chest. I couldn't listen to music to relax because I was relying on Google Maps for navigation. I employed deep breathing techniques. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And that made all the difference, end quote. Does this bodily experience sound familiar to any of us here? Yes, me too. She goes on to share that once she arrived at the nature center, she sat in her car clenching the steering wheel, quote, with white knuckles in contrast to my otherwise brown-hued skin, unquote. And as she watched other people entering the building, she couldn't muster the courage to join them. She said everyone seemed to know one another, and no one even came close to looking like me. I felt I had made a horrible mistake. Yet, I had made it this far. As people began to come out of the building and to start the bird watching and counting activities, Miss Watts shared that her paralyzing fear surrendered to her curiosity, and she got out of her car. She writes, folks were introducing themselves and discussing the day's agenda, and the guide, Tom, asked my name twice and warmly said, welcome. And indeed, I felt very welcomed. Several people extended introductions with generous smiles, and I soon learned that many others had decided to embark on their new venture that day as well. Ms. Watts goes on to tell of her full day of birding and her joy for connecting with an experience that feeds her body, mind, and soul, and the new understanding she has of herself and a new community. I share her story because while the particulars undoubtedly differ for each of us, this is a story we can all relate to as we recall times when we have felt like an outsider, hoping to be genuinely welcomed, and the times when we are the welcomer, needing to remember what it feels like to risk showing up in a new space as our most authentic selves. As I read this passage in Miss Watts' book, I couldn't help but think of people visiting our congregation for the first time and hoping that they find the courage to come through the doors, and that we can create a safe and welcoming space to invite them to bring their most authentic selves, even as we welcome and bring and continue to reveal to each other our most authentic selves. This is the work the gift of welcome asks of us. So as our earlier call to worship beckoned, we offer a spacious welcome to those who come heavy with fatigue, weary from the troubles of the world or the troubles of our own particular lives. May we all find rest and be filled in this sacred space. We welcome all who come with joy for flowing rivers and gentle breeze, for changing skies and great trees. May the grace of the world leave a lasting imprint on us. Welcome who come with thanks for the altruism of the earth and for the gift of human care. May our grateful hearts overflow and bless those around us.